Hello everybody. Before I introduce my topic, I wanted to introduce some of the people that assisted me with it. This is Pierce Meyer and my mentor, Carl Kaminsky.
How's it going?
My project was I did how does teen survive high school with having high functioning autism going through high school. The reason why I did this project was I did it for an personal reason. Back when I was younger, I was diagnosed with high functioning autism when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And also I wanted to have a deeper and personal connection with others that have this disability as well. What high functioning autism is, it goes by a DSM code, which this DSM code is a medical diagnosis of autism. An example of how people are diagnosed with high functioning how people are diagnosed within this code. An example of this is a qualitative impairment in social interaction as manifested by at least 2 of the following. Another example within this code is a restrictive, repetitive and stereotype patterns of behavior, interests, and activities as manifested by at least 1 of the following. Then there are 4 more things to look for. And I did a list of examples of characteristics, and here are some examples. I'm only going to read the first 2. The first one is troubles starting conversations, and also a difficult time interpreting what others are thinking. And here are some others to take time to read. And here are some current statistics on autism that I'm going to be reading. 1% of children ages 3 to 17 contain autism spectrum disorder known as ASD. 15% of people that has ASD do not finish high school. And here are some more statistics. 40% of children with autism are picked on just for being different in school. 50% of parents of children with high functioning autism believe that their child's needs are not being met properly in their current schools. Going through this process, I developed a list of questions to ask students that I interviewed personally myself. And the first question I asked was, what obstacles have you faced with having high functioning autism going through high school? And I will be showing you an example of a couple videos. Show the first video.
Mostly math. Other classes that you pay attention to.
Trouble starting conversation. And I'm poorly organized.
The second question I asked was, how did you manage overcoming your obstacles?
How should we get? It actually helps me very well because actually technology is very easy for me to use because it actually helps me more than I would use like a regular pencil. Fix things all the time, but Also, it also helps me with like folks that have a disability with DACs. I get auto books for DACs, so I'm actually able to read books for English and all that.
The third question I asked was how did you feel about school social events?
At the school, I don't really put up cards at all because, like I said, I'm just not a very big social person. Like, if I did go, I'm pretty sure the only thing I'd do would just sit and just think to myself because I don't know, I just don't have that sort of I guess you could say I just feel too self-conscious about what people think of me. I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I just feel like I make a fool of myself whenever I try and have fun in a public place.
To school social events, I felt really uncomfortable, but I found a couple people that I could talk to that was helpful in enabling me to have fun at the school dances. But the only reason why I went was it gave me something to do.
Mm-hmm.
The question 4 I asked is, what would you change about the support systems at the school? Is the consistency with how people were getting help. At first, there was one special ed teacher until now that they hired a second special ed teacher. I feel that with 2 teachers that it'll be beneficial for consistency. The final question that I asked was, are there any tips you could give to teens on how to manage going through high school with having high-functioning autism?
Choose your friends wisely. Pay attention in class.
Don't level Facebook and World of Warcraft. Yeah, into the real world.
It's easier said than done, but just don't worry too much. Because chances are, because like one thing I do all the time is that I always just think of the worst case scenario. I always think of worst case scenario like the worst is gonna happen if I do this or that, when more times than not, it's actually a lot better than I thought. So like talking to new people, trying out new things, I just suggest just making yourself more out there, not worrying so much about what people think of you, because if you worry too much about that, you're gonna end up holding yourself back from your full potential. Right.
And then essentially what after I did was with that I also split it up into teachers, and the first question I asked was, how do teens survive in your high school with having high-functioning autism?
Now, there are a lot of ways to support students, and I think most teachers are familiar with multiple intelligences. So we work closely with the special education team. We review the 504s, the special instructional modifications, and we make sure that students have multiple ways to get engaged with the material and to learn. And part of that is the multiple intelligences, so that we just have to remind ourselves that people learn in different ways. And the education plans really help us focus on specific strategies to help students.
What is your role of... The second question I asked was, what is your role of supporting teens that have high-functioning autism?
At the highest level, my role is ensuring that special education mandates are met, and making sure that teachers are able to differentiate as needed in a classroom environment, whether that is through something mandated on the IEP, or if it is just something around the idea of making sure teachers have what they need, both from skill set wise and time wise and the rest of it, to help kids. And so I think at the highest level is that. I think at the next level it is continuing that notion of creating an environment where every student feels cared for. every student feels that they belong. And I think that, especially for students, we know that in many schools, students with functional autism struggle socially. And I think creating that ethic of care that everybody knows that everybody's responsible for everyone in the community is probably the biggest thing.
My third question is, what did you feel are the strengths in your role?
The strength is that they get to work with students pretty closely, and I get to know them and how best to support them. So, you know, for example, when I see a student having an issue, either socially or not knowing how to function in a group, or not understanding something, I can go in and I can help that student directly, and also, you know, I can go and support them in the regular education classroom by talking to their teachers and making sure everybody's on the same page.
The fourth question I asked was, what do you feel are the weaknesses in the role?
Improve on making sure that I'm able to have enough time to work with the students with high functioning autism and maybe some of the social supports that they could need.
I could pay more attention to the strategies as they change over 1 year, because the teams and the student and the parents will sometimes change the learning plan. And so something that I was doing that was successful may not be required in January, and there's something else I should be working on. Second, I think that schools need to be smaller so that we can spend more time with a variety of students. So right now we have 33 kids per student. That's what the law allows, I guess. But I think a much better ratio is 1 to 20, so we can have much deeper relationships. Anything below 20 is just kind of too small, I think. You can't get enough energy in the classroom.
The fifth and final question I asked was, any other tips you can recommend to teens on how to manage going through high school with having high functioning autism?
For me, would be to just make sure that you're utilizing the resources at the school, be it study skills, math lab, lit lab, teachers, Mr. Lehman, whoever, and whatever, just to support you through your process of learning and becoming a well-rounded young man or woman.
To be your own best advocate and to know how to ask for the things that you need, and to never feel like you have to apologize for who you are and the things that you need. And learning how to do that in a way that is honest and open, and yet also respects the needs of everybody else in the room. Because in any classroom there's 30 stories and 30 different sets of needs. I think it's a really powerful thing. I think that that's something that is important for everyone to learn, but I think it's probably especially true, that ability to be your own best advocate is probably even more true for students with high functioning autism.
And that wraps up my project. And really special thanks. I wanted to give a special thanks to my mentor for having the patience with me, you know, so thank you.
Your references.
And also,